Today, I'm excited to have Tim Fahndrich on the podcast. Tim is a lifelong entrepreneur, a community builder, and a passionate supporter of local business. He was born in Mexico to missionary parents and moved to Oregon when he was 3. As the youngest of 5 brothers, Tim learned early on the value of hard work, connection, and creativity. Tim and his wife Pam have been married for 32 years and have worked together in business for the past 17. They share a love of music and enjoy leading worship together at their church. Tim also has a serious love of travel. He has visited 49 out of 50 U.S. states, along with Canada, Mexico, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and 11 European countries. Whether he's helping small businesses grow, encouraging others through faith and leadership, or simply sharing his story, Tim brings heart, experience, and a deep love for people and community. Tim, I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, William. I'm really looking forward to this.
Welcome to Catalytic Leadership, the podcast designed to help leaders intentionally grow and thrive. Here is your host, author, and leadership and executive coach, Dr. William Attaway.
I would love to start, Tim, with a little bit of your story for our listeners, particularly around your journey and your development as a leader. How did you get started?
Yeah, it's interesting. So right out of college, I decided to join a family-run business. A couple of my brothers had started a landscape business, and they needed some help kind of on the business side of things. I got a business degree and figured, oh my goodness, I know all this stuff.
Yeah.
Right? All the book knowledge.
You got it.
I know all this stuff. So
you got the piece of paper. You're good.
Right? So I went into business with them and kind of started leading on the business side of things. And that was my initial career. Spent 14 years with my brothers doing some landscape business along the way. In 1996, we actually started a .com, and that was kind of my brainchild. I was like, well, look what Amazon's doing. We can do that. Very naively.
Nice.
I'm like, huh. Looking back, of course, that wasn't so easy. But yeah, I mean, I think just even before that, honestly, it's like a lot of, just leadership roles, growing up as an entrepreneur, as somebody that, captain of sports teams and athlete, and just different things like that is really kind of where the genesis of leadership came from for me.
And now you lead We're Local. Talk about that a little bit. What is that about?
Yeah, so We're Local is a positive community-based media network and a champion for all things local. And what that means is, in media today, you think of social media, and social media is so toxic, so polarizing, so distracting. And it's also, then you think of like corporate media, where it's just, you think of, TV, and I mean, a lot of it's just corporate run. And what we really wanted to do is come up with a positive community-based media network, and something that we can be really proud of, that encourages and uplifts our community and our local communities in a way that really recognizes the value and the integral part of what small businesses and nonprofits bring to the table economically, relationally, community-wise, and be able to support them in every way possible.
Have you always had a heart for the small local business?
Yeah, for sure. It runs in our blood. And Pam and I both, my dad and Pam's dad were both entrepreneurs. I mean, my dad was a missionary and a pastor at heart, but he also ran a small business. And Pam, my wife Pam's dad, was a small business contractor for his career. And so it really is, it's in our DNA. So yeah, really supporting that local business. And it was interesting because one of the things, I know you speak to a lot of agency owners, and there's a lot of there's a lot of, emphasis on finding a niche, finding
Yeah.
a niche, finding a niche, right? And so we had served local businesses for quite a while, and that was a turnaround actually for our business. And 3 years into our business journey, we actually had no idea what we were doing. And then we kind of like, okay, we really want to work with local businesses. And then there was this feeling like, well, we really need to pick a niche. And so we did. We picked a niche, started going deep into a particular area, trying to figure out how to grow that nationwide. And then COVID hit, and we were like, is that really our passion? And is that really where we want to go? And we realized that for us, like, we love local, and it's hard to have that same relationship that you can have when you see a customer at the grocery store, at the ball game, at church, at a chamber event. It's hard to have, when you can have that kind of relationship versus when you see them once or twice a year at an event or something. And that just really it reinforced our passion and why we love to serve local businesses and nonprofits, because we can have that local relationship. So now what we're doing as we're expanding across the country, building We're Local in community by community, we're finding other people like us that are entrepreneurs, and they love their community, and they recognize the value and the impact of local businesses and nonprofits, and they want to be able to do the same thing in their community to support local. So if that makes any sense.
Oh, 100%. And I love the passion there. And I think that is why you have been successful in doing what you're doing. So often I see entrepreneurs, they're pursuing revenue, but it's not aligned with their passion. And that just leads to burnout over time.
Absolutely.
But if you can align those two things, you can align, the reason people start a business is to be able to eat and live indoors, right? To add value to other people and also add value to their family.
Right.
And by aligning your passion area there, it just seems so evident to me. Like that is what is catapulting you forward with what's happening with We're Local.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of metrics that you can look at, top line and vanity metrics in terms of revenue and different things as an agency, as a business owner. But at the end of the day, like, are you really, for us, when we were kind of going through that decision making, do we continue to pursue a niche? Do we go deep in all things agency services, which I can come back to? But it was like, it's for us, it's more about designing the business that we really want to have for
Yes.
the type of impact that we want to make, and how do we accomplish that? And for us, again, it was like, well, we really truly want to find a way to serve local businesses in our community, and then duplicate that across the country, which is where we're at now. We're starting to do that across the country. So,
and I think it's so laudable to see what you're doing and that alignment. Let's talk about agency for a second, because agencies there's so many different kinds, so many different types, so many different things you can focus on. To be a full service agency these days means that you're doing about 4,000 different things, right? Why did you, a lifelong entrepreneur, why step into agency world? What drew you there, and why the type of agency that you're building now?
Yeah, it was interesting because, like, I did have a sales job after we left, or the .com hit the brick wall, right? We hit that proverbial .com brick wall, ran out of money, all the stuff that happened to just about everybody. I went to work for a company for 6 years. They had actually bought our website, and I went to work for them. But my entrepreneurial juices really got started again. I was like, Pam, I can't do this anymore. They treated me well, don't get me wrong, but it was just like, I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I got to do it. So, first 3 years, we didn't really have a clue what we were doing. Then we kind of landed on, let's serve local businesses. And then that grew into becoming this full service digital agency. And it was like, well, we're going to do websites, and we're going to do PPC, and we're going to do SEO, and we're going to do
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right.
Notice my mumbling, right? Because you just kept adding to the list. And that became, we started pushing hard on that and building that. And I mean, we made every mistake in the book, but the idea as that continued to grow, the complexity of that continued to grow, and like how to just the complexity of everything got out of control. And I hear that a lot with agency owners. They're like wearing so many hats, they're offering so many different products. How do they even manage the complexity? And so we were like, A, we want to focus on recurring income or recurring revenue, subscription-based revenue. And then B, like how can we simplify and productize what we're offering? So we're at a point now where we do not do, I saw somebody post on Facebook the other day, they hate the customized proposals. And I was like, yeah, I hate those too, because we don't do anything custom and we don't do proposals. so that's how we designed our business now. It's like we've productized and everything turns into recurring. And if that isn't a fit, then that isn't a fit. And, it's not where we go.
So when you think about, your ideal client that you love to work with, that you can really see results for, what do you see?
Yeah, for us, it's the local, mostly local businesses, but we do work with some nonprofits that are, they're typically in the 5 to 50 employee range. There's exceptions either way, honestly. And sometimes we get really small businesses that are just trying to get their presence and their reputation. And what we like to talk about 5 different areas that we can have an impact: their online presence, their reputation, their content marketing, and how that how that impacts local reach, how they reach more consumers, because that's what they all want, right?
Sure, absolutely.
At the end of the day, that's what they all want.
Yeah.
And then, of course, now really integrating automation and AI. And so the ideal business for us or nonprofit is somebody that looks at those things and say, we need help in those areas. And then we can turn around and because of the products that we've built and the systems that we've built, we can make an impact in those areas. So they're looking to basically say, I can't do it all by myself. I need some help. And I'm willing to invest some money at least to be able to do that. So,
and I think that's the expertise you bring, right? That you're a true growth partner, right? You come alongside of them and you're like, hey, you're struggling. I know how to get past where you're stuck, and I can help you. And man, I got to tell you, as a small business owner myself, that's something that really resonates, because nobody knows everything. Nobody can know everything about everything. You just can't. Right. You have to pick and choose. I hire an accountant because I don't know the tax code, and I'm not going to learn the tax code. I'm just not. And I know that about myself. And so that's why I hire somebody, and this is their expertise. This is what they're great at. I want you to be world-class at this for us. Let's do it, Yeah. And I think people come to you with the same idea. Do you agree?
Yeah. Definitely, I agree. And again, I mean, I wouldn't say we know it all either, because things are changing so fast, and that's a whole another part of the topic we can discuss here. But things are changing fast. But yeah, people are looking to us for the expertise. They don't have time, they don't have expertise, and yet they need the help, and they recognize that for sure.
So how? I mean, you've been in this long enough to see some trends of and a whole lot of change over these years. And there's only more ahead. Well, where do you see things going? What are some of the trends that you see coming our way?
Yeah, so I was having this conversation with a longtime friend of mine back east, and been a really successful digital agency owner. Done some really good things, right? And yet he said, Tim, what's going on? And just the way this year is starting, and some of it, there's certainly some economic uncertainty and different things that could be playing some roles. But I think fundamentally the landscape in the agency space is changing in a way that and changing really, really fast. I think mindsets are changing. Obviously AI and automation are changing. I think just even the impact of AI on search, for example. I personally so rarely use I rarely use Google anymore in terms of looking for answers. And so think about how that then impacts how, and again, I'm on the cutting edge, bleeding edge in a lot of ways, but think about how that starts to impact a local business who is relying on search to show up to get customers.
Yes.
And so that's just one example of how technology and AI and everything is changing that at a pace that, quite frankly, I don't think we've ever seen. And I think it's just all changing very, very quickly.
I agree. So you're not using Google anymore. What are you using?
Well, I mean, I should clarify. Of course, I still use Google, but when I'm looking for answers, I'll open up ChatGPT. I'll open up Perplexity. I'll open up Perplexity is an amazing research tool, and I can find much better answers that allow me to dig deeper and find exactly what I need using one of those tools than I can finding and sifting through pages of Google results that may or may not be relevant. And so it is, again, super interesting, and how that impacts a small local business or a nonprofit, like getting found. I'm not saying by any means for agency owners out there and people, entrepreneurs, I'm not saying that search is dead. It's not. But it's an example of change that is happening.
It's a major shift.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I know people, and this is what I do the same thing. I go to ChatGPT, I go to Perplexity. I'm gonna talk and like go back and forth, trying to really dial in exactly what I'm looking for, so I can get the results that I'm after.
Yep.
And I'm watching this more and more, particularly with some of my colleagues and some of my team members who are on the younger side. They don't go to Google,
right?
Really, for anything.
Right.
They're going to ChatGPT.
Exactly. I had a conversation yesterday with a younger entrepreneur, second generation in leadership in his company. And he's like, I jumped on ChatGPT early and I use it every day. And, again, we're seeing a mixture of that, of course. So that's managing that and understanding that change. And I honestly think a lot of older people like myself aren't ready for that. There's a lot of denial, or not necessarily even denial, but I think there's just a lot of people that like, they're not realizing how fast things are changing.
So when somebody comes to you like that, and they're not at the point where they're bleeding edge, they're not diving into ChatGPT and such.
Yeah.
But they need help. Yeah. Where do you start with them?
Yeah. So one of the things we actually love doing is teaching kind of at and helping along those levels. So we've done a lot of AI workshops, and now we've really kind of incorporated it into We're Local as a kind of a first step. So we give away one of our model is that we give away free memberships to local businesses and nonprofits. Again, doesn't matter wherever you are in the U.S., you can sign up. We have some family friendly stipulations and so forth, but in terms of type of business. But they can sign up for a free membership. And then the very first thing we do is we invite them to a new member workshop. And during that new member workshop, we show them and walk through together, like, here's how you can use We're Local and AI to really transform your business. And we walk through some basics. Or it's super interesting because you've got a mix, of course. I always try to ask, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you at with AI? And, 1 being I've never used it before, just getting started, 10 being like I'm an expert, which I don't know who's saying that, right? Because it's changing.
Not me.
So fast,
not me.
Right? But we, so we obviously have a mix, right? But the goal is to show the brand new beginner, somebody that's maybe been a little skeptical, like how they can get started, or we always, like, if we get a more advanced user, we always help them walk away with, oh my goodness, I didn't even know that was possible. And so, I mean, that's just a short, 60-minute new member workshop that we're doing to kind of help educate. But then that leads into some additional opportunities to learn and grow with us together. And I, there are a million ways to be bleeding edge. And I would say, we're bleeding edge, but small businesses and nonprofits are not prepared to be bleeding edge. They're having trouble staying cutting edge.
Yes.
And so if we can, and that's not a criticism of them at all. They're just wearing we all wear a lot of hats, right? So
Yeah.
it kind of depends on where you're trying to go. So we're trying to help them along that path with the new member workshop and just kind of helping them embrace AI.
Mm. You and Pam really integrate faith into your business, into your lives. So many people feel like they have to compartmentalize that part of their life and kind of wall it off.
Yeah.
That's not who you are. You are, and from the first time we met last year, I saw that about you, that this is just part of who you are. This just flows out as naturally and freely as talking about we're local.
Yeah. It really does. It's part of it. It's who we are. Just background with growing up, faith background, both of us did. And it's, I think it's so important to us. Pam and I we went to a marriage retreat 3 years ago now, that our pastor put on. And it was like, this sounds really good. Let's go. And we had a chance to really think about some ways of like, how do we have a bigger impact? Like on our drive home, we were like, how do we have a bigger impact with what we have? And so much of that revolves around not an overt preaching, but by any means, but like living out our faith in our business and viewing our business as a mission. In one of our core vision statements that we've always wanted to be a light in the marketplace. And that's partially like, how do we that's the difference too of building a positive community-based media network versus toxic social media and or local media. There's examples, of course, that I could name, but I won't. But we just want to make it. We want to be a light in the marketplace and see how that plays out.
I love that. Tim, your business needs you to lead at a higher level today than it did 5 years ago. And that same thing is going to be true 5 years from now.
Yeah.
Your team, your clients, they're looking to you. How do you stay on top of your game? How do you level up with the new leadership skills that your business, your team, your clients are going to need you to have in the days and years to come?
Yeah. I think partially it comes down to getting in the room with other leaders, and something that I hadn't been doing enough of, to be honest. And so just really trying to get in the room with other leaders, and also I think a big part of what I'm seeing is being able to say, okay, what got us here is not going to get us there, and looking at the pace of change and the pace of everything going on. And there's a lot of chaos, a lot of confusion, a lot of change. And as I mentioned earlier, just being able, like, that pace of change is like nothing we've ever seen. So I think for me, thinking about how do I lead in a way that helps our team and our customers, and we're growing a network of local champions, affiliates, and so forth across the country. Like, how do we help them embrace that change in a way that helps, I guess, in a way that they don't feel displaced, because it's still, at the end of the day, it's still all about people. But that they don't feel displaced by automation and AI, but they can embrace it and help them do their jobs better.
I love that. As you think of your business as a whole, what is one thing that you want most?
I would say is to make an impact in our communities, in the communities that we serve. I just feel strongly that, as the passion came out earlier, like, local small business and nonprofits are the heartbeat. They're the backbone. I mean, I know it's a cliche, but they truly are.
Yeah.
They're the backbone of our economy, and it actually hurts, right? That when we see a small business, and so many are struggling right now, I see a small business go out of business, and like, oh, was there more that I could have done? And so if we could be known to provide tools, systems, strategies, whatever that looks like, relationships that can help a small business or a nonprofit thrive instead of go out of business. That's kind of where our heart is: make an impact and be a light in the marketplace.
So thinking about that, what's stopping you from it?
I think I've been a bottleneck partially, to our business growth. And so one of the things that Pam is actually doing a really good job is helping me get out of the way.
Nice. Nice.
So, part of it comes down to, resources and model, and, we've made a lot of mistakes in some of that for sure. But just we just recently revamped and tweaked a few things in our model that I think will help me get out of the way, and help others thrive in new ways. But also just putting a scalable operating system in place that can remove some of those bottlenecks.
I love that. And you are not alone. I see that so often. And I know that so many of the people who are listening can resonate, with this idea that the bottleneck is in the mirror. Like, we all have that capacity. And I think most founders have that tendency. We all tend to lean that direction, absent incredibly intentional decisions and choices that we build into the system. So, you're always learning. You've mentioned being on the bleeding edge, the cutting edge. Where did you learn best from? Is there a book that's made a big difference in your journey? Are there podcasts that you listen to? What are some of the sources of learning that really you would recommend to the other leaders who are listening?
Yeah. Transparently, I don't do that well with books. I'm a consummate idea guy, and I get distracted really, really quickly. Like when reading a book, I'm like, oh, well, let me think about that. And I'm off on a rabbit trail, but it doesn't mean I don't read books, and some that recently have had an impact in my mindset and in our business. One is The CEO's Mindset by Vinny Fisher. It
Yes.
actually has helped me realize that I really do need to change my mindset. I opened up a page today and was reading through a section, and it was like, so that's about all I can do. I can read about a page because then I get, but I was talking about product development. I'm a product guy. I'm an idea guy. So I'm always wanting to overdevelop. And that's been one of our challenges. We've overdeveloped in so many ways in terms of what we're local can do. And the thing was talking about, don't get stuck in that overdevelopment loop. So learning about that, but also another book that Pam has actually, I've read part of it, but Pam has actually really kind of helped condense it and start implement for us. And she's my co-founder, she's my wife, she's my life partner, she's my business partner. So, but she's really the implementer and being able to, it's Get Scalable by Ryan Deiss, and it's building an operating system that for your business that doesn't depend on you. And that a lot of what I've taken from that is we've been able to map out processes. We've had SOPs and we've had all this kind of stuff, and they've changed so rapidly, but really being able to just use a really simple concept of taking sticky notes and putting them up on a labeling and putting them up on a whiteboard, say, okay, when this happens, what happens next? And then another sticky note and another sticky note, and just mapping it all out and then taking stuff out or adding stuff as needed. And that's been super helpful.
That's excellent. Tim, I could talk to you for another hour. There's so much wisdom and insight that you have shared today. And I'm so grateful for your generosity in sharing from what you've learned so far. I know our listeners are going to want to stay connected to you and learn more about We're Local. What is the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, you can jump on our website. Again, we give away free memberships, what we call memberships, to local businesses and nonprofits, wherever you might be. And so it's We're Local. It's WHIR, local. We're is a synonym for buzz, by the way. And it's also play on words. We are local, but it's WHIRlocal.io. And you can jump on there. That directs you to our website. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm also on Facebook.
We will have all those links in the show notes.
Yeah, sounds great.
Tim, thank you so much for sharing so generously today.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be on the show with you.